Landscape or portrait?
Ah, depends.
Unity or native?
Ooh.
You're listening to Level Up with Melissa Zaloof.
So welcome back, everyone. I'm Melissa Zaloof, and you're listening to Level Up, the podcast for people who love making, growing, and of course, playing mobile games. Today on the show, we have Mishka Matkoff, one of the guys behind the amazing gaming blog Deconstructor of Fun, and also Director of Product Management at Rovio. And we're going to be talking about the rise of hyper-casual and some other cool 2018 trends. So Mishka, thanks very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So before we kind of dive into deconstructing the year ahead, I'd like to start off with kind of just talking about you. You're currently Director of Product Management at Rovio. Before that, you were at Zynga and then Supercell, and in fact at Rovio once before, if I'm correct. That's quite a gaming pedigree. How did you get into the gaming space? Were you kind of always a big gamer? Was this the dream?
Yeah. So that's actually probably true for most of the people. Yes, I was always a gamer, and yes, it was always a dream. But it kind of like the dream got away. I ended up in business school at some point, and and it was kind of a grind. I really didn't like like all the
Uh-huh.
opportunities in the business school and all the consulting work and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this opportunity to become a product manager on in a company called Digital Chocolate. It had a studio here in Helsinki, and yeah, and I applied for the job, and I got the job, and during the application process, we were supposed to go through a lot of research about Facebook games because that's what the company was doing back then,
Right.
and and I was doing this research, and I totally understood that, man, it's a huge market. Nobody's talking about it, but it was like 2009, 2010 when
Mm-hmm.
Farmvilles were out, and people really weren't talking about games in as social games. Everything was still very much AAA, and
Yeah.
I felt super excited, and got the job, and worked first on Facebook games, then started working on mobile games, and I'm still working on mobile games. I've worked in Helsinki and in San Francisco, so.
Which do you
That's
prefer?
I both are good in their own sense. So I was happy enough, I was lucky enough to experience both at the perfect life stages. So San
Mm-hmm.
Francisco, absolutely. In the US, I would recommend it to anybody who doesn't have kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I would recommend Helsinki to anybody who has kids.
Right. Yeah, I could see that. And how does the experience working at each of these different kind of gaming giants differ?
Um, it does and it doesn't. So in one sense, like how would I put it? I've seen so many studios.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of the interesting part about gaming is that there's no look-like teams, and what I mean by that is like every game team is different by some way. Naturally, it has different people, and usually it's built around the strengths and weaknesses of those people. So it is very different. Uh, when it comes to larger organizations, you get process, and you get a
Mm-hmm.
lot of stakeholders, you get a lot of meetings, you get a lot of politics to some extent as
Of
well.
course.
So that's what happens when people get together and they're trying to get things done. But you also get bigger budgets and you get IPs, and then like there's something that slows you down, but there's also those boosters when it comes to time to launching a game. And naturally, you get all the services like the tools team, the the analytics, the marketing, the PR, the whatnot. So
Mm-hmm.
working in larger companies is more about um, just networking really well inside the companies, and
Mm-hmm. And collaborating.
collaborating, communicating, making sure that everybody's on the ball, and everything is moving at the right speed and everybody's aboard. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a totally different mindset and tool set than working in a smaller company where I was also running a studio for FunPlus for a couple of years, and that's a whole different thing. So you have a really small studio, and then you're trying to make a game, and your whole focus is on making that game, and your process are just perfected for quick agile development, and then making quick decisions and moving forward as fast as possible, and then keeping that team tight. It's a totally different work. There's not a lot of people, so there's not a lot of politics going on, and then you
Right.
don't have to really communicate that much. You basically get things done. So very, very different jobs, and very, very different areas. So I would recommend anybody to experiment both, like the
Mm-hmm.
startup-y, small studios
Where
as well as big companies.
where does your heart lie if you had to pick?
See, I don't have that type of thing. Like I like both, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm the type of person like I may be the type of person who gets bored quickly, like if there's not much challenges. So um, I honestly like both. I like the big companies in the sense that just having all of these tools available, like market research and then as I said, analytics, like all of that available and all of that support available makes it easier. And then on the other hand, in the small company where you can just focus on making stuff and your 8 hours a day is hyper productive. There's no wasted time. You're just doing your thing and you get so much done and the progress so much quicker. But kind of moving that to a large scale is very different and then almost impossible. Like there's only a few companies that are able to do that. So
Sure.
so I don't
Um,
have a preferred one.
you like the change?
I like the change. I honestly do.
Yeah, that makes sense. Director of Product Management at Rovio isn't the only hat you wear, of course.
Yeah.
You're also the founder and one of the main writers behind the Deconstructor of Fun blog,
Yeah.
which is awesome. Highly
Thank
recommend
you.
it to everyone listening. What led you to create the blog in the first place?
I was doing a lot of notes on games. Like you, as a product manager, you have to deconstruct other games. You have to deconstruct their feature sets in order to use them for your own game. That's what we do. I've always been doing that and always been benchmarking. That's something you learn from business schools. And at some point, I don't remember. It was at Rovio when I was working here the last time, which was like in 2012, and there was a discussion I think about CSR racing, and I don't know. I just wrote about it, like why I think it's making so much money back then,
Mm-hmm.
and that post went viral. So I was like, okay, this is pretty cool.
Maybe
And
this is something I could do.
yeah, it's not even that. Like I've honestly not been looking that much at the stats. Like I only look at the stats when somebody asks for them. But in the end, the blog has always been for me to learn, and by making it public, you actually write much better. You might write better notes because before that, when I was writing these notes, they were kind of disappearing in some Dropbox folder. They weren't really good, and I would write back to them like, I don't remember what I was trying to do here. I don't remember this thing. I don't remember that thing. But then once I started making them public, the notes were really good. And I still go back to my notes every time. I go back to them, I look at them like, oh, I remember this game. I go back there and I can actually share it to somebody. I don't need to write a new spec, or I can just
Right.
modify a little bit or so forth. So it has been highly useful in that sense, but it also has been useful in kind of I'm the type of person who thinks by writing. I'm sure there's a lot of people like that, but
Yes,
that's
I call myself the same.
yeah, so I walk everywhere with a pen and paper. I'm that kind of like I don't draw, I just write. Yeah, I'm just learning all the time. I'm writing and learning at the same time, writing and learning. So I've been doing more editing right now since there are more people on who joined the blog,
Mm-hmm.
and since I have a baby, so I don't have that much time to write. But even the editing has helped me a lot because I read through it and read through with ability to add something more and just
Sure.
think about what they've been trying to say.
Sure. Do you think it was your business school background that kind of created the structures of thought or the kind of the way of looking at things in a deconstructive way? Or is that something that's kind of endemic to the game industry in general?
I think both, but I would say business school is particularly notorious for benchmarking everything. You're trying to understand why certain businesses work, and that kind of led pretty well to this job, being a product person, and yeah, and this business as any is very much benchmark driven. So even though we talk about being creative, and we are highly creative, all the game makers, but something has to inspire that creativity. Not with all of the games. Naturally, there's the indie games, there's the artsy games, but with most of top grossing games, they're inspired by something, and usually that inspiration comes through deconstructions, and deconstruction makes you understand better why something is working, why something isn't. So
Right.
yeah.
Cool. So let's do some deconstructing. we're still roughly early on in 2018. I think it's still permissible to talk about trends for the coming year.
Yeah.
And this is something you've covered in the blog. But kind of let's just start maybe from a more general perspective. What and this is big, right? But what type of games do you think will perform best in 2018? And I know that you've kind of you split up your predictions across segments, but kind of looking at the whole industry, where do you think we're going to see the most kind of growth and movement?
Okay, most growth or most revenue?
Both.
Okay, so most revenue, I would still say it's the mid-core games. And then what do I mean by mid-core is I mean a game that is predominantly made for male audience. Usually we're talking about between 60 to 75% of male. So those type of games like RPGs and synchronous battlers and what's the newest one? It's those battle arena games. I think those are continuing to be the most profitable games, and actually the MOBAs or the MOBA from China, Arena of Valor or Stark of Kings, whatever you want to call it. They are the sources of the biggest revenue. When it comes to growth and where the biggest growth is coming, I think it's the puzzle games. I was just looking at some App Annie charts, and puzzle category used to be the biggest one back in like 2012, 2013, and then it was overtaken by Build and Battle. But since Clash Royale launched, the Build and Battle has been going down and all the battle games. And during this time, puzzle category has been soaring. It's Candy Crush is making more and more money every year still.
Even though downloads are going down.
Downloads are going down. DAU is also declining, and there's King is not launching that many new good game. I mean, there are good games, but they're not financially as successful as their predecessors. Still, the category is going up, and you can see innovation coming into the category. Like Peak Games is moving in with some mid-core mechanics, or what do we call, like more social mechanics. Legendary is a good example of a game that at heart is a puzzle game, but with much more. That's actually more mid-core mechanics, and naturally the Playrix with Fishdom that has been growing for I don't know how many years, and Gardenscape and Homescape's kind of dropped, but still it's the biggest growth, and then the biggest and the most competitive sector at this moment is puzzle games. So I would say that's where the biggest one. I mean, there's a chance that AR games with the Harry Potter would create another pop, but if we're being logical, if I would have to bet, I would say the categories where the growth is casino and puzzle.
Right. And we've kind of talked a little bit about the blurring between the different, I guess we'll call them segments. And you divide your predictions across kind of casual, mid, and then of course there's hardcore games. How much player crossover do you think there is across these different segments?
I think there's plenty. I think there's plenty. We categorize more genres than sort of players, because when looking at player profiles, which for example we do here a lot at Rovio, there's so many different gamer profiles, and even though you might be playing League of Legends at home, you might still enjoy your games of Clash Royale here and there, or on the bus, or even pop some candies and in Candy Crush. So I don't believe in that sense, like if you're a hardcore gamer, you won't play any other games. That's not true. These are just different games for different occasions.
Interesting. And looking at casual games, we talked about downloads for puzzle games going down, but revenues are actually climbing. What do you think these companies are doing to cause this increase in revenues? What have they kind of shifted? Is it ad monetization? Is it IAPs? What have they done to kind of increase revenues over the past year?
Yeah, well, for sure, there is ad monetization coming in, and it has been a quite useful source of revenue for all the games. So, but I don't think that's the biggest driver. I mean, there are some idle games that are doing that, but that's not the biggest driver of revenues. I think the biggest driver is just optimization, and with puzzle games, the optimization is on totally new level. One of the reason is that they're not competitive game per se. They're not PvP games, so there's so much room to do all kind of A/B tests. You can levels for different cohorts. You can do so many tests to see how conversion and retention and ARPPU and ARPDAU, like how can they perform with minor changes. And with years of development, you know how to perfect that game and add even a trend word of machine learning to there, and you have mix.
Well, then talking about kind of strategies for increasing revenue, let's say optimization isn't necessarily possible at that level or at that level of perfection. And then kind of looking at IP, do you think IP is too big of a risk when it comes to casual games?
Oh, well, my personal opinion is if you don't own the IP, then
Don't use it.
yeah. Well, there's different situation, but I would be careful. I personally have experience of launching 2 IP games, with an IP holder who wasn't who I didn't work for, and they're difficult projects. Like people don't understand, but it's not only that they will take a cut of your net revenue, which will affect your CPIs, and you have to discuss the marketings and everything like that's in the live operations. But even before that, just getting everything approved, the timelines they come in with that work. What in the end is the IP valuable enough? Well, if it's Kim Kardashian, sure, it is, but it just carries a lot of risk.
Right. Working with Kim Kardashian might be a nightmare.
Yeah. Oh well, yeah. The results have been good. So, but again, her sisters didn't do that well. So that's another one. So I would say just be careful. Yeah, just be careful.
Be careful. Caution ahead.
Yes, it's not as easy as it sounds.
Okay, and then we've talked about kind of perfecting optimization, but what do you think has kind of been the biggest innovation in the casual game space? Or is it optimization? Is it that kind of casual
No, optimization's been going on for a long time, and we've heard rumors that King's teams, like even one game team, can have up to 40 data scientists on it. So
wow.
I don't know if that's true, but those are the type of rumors that they're highly data driven. But the other part, like how other companies are able to compete with King, that's the real question, because King essentially owned the market. Well, the competition has come really through addition of new mechanics into the puzzle game. So instead of like always going with the same old puzzle map, they've tried new different things. They've added sort of elements from simple simulation games where you're earning something through the puzzles, and now you're investing that what you earn in something that you're building, like the aquariums or the gardens or the homes, as well as more casual sort of like small competitive features like leagues and competitive features like guilds, or collaborative features like guilds. And when we have seen all of those additions come into simple puzzle games, and the effects have been very, very good.
Let's jump just for a short minute to talk about messenger games, which is kind of this emerging thing that's happening inside the space. They've become increasingly popular, and also messaging apps in general are kind of taking a much bigger share of time spent in app. So I'm kind of curious to see why you think we're seeing messenger games take off. Is it kind of a sustainable new channel for game experiences, and what can we kind of expect to see in the upcoming year?
Yeah, I mean, they for sure have been growing, and Facebook is definitely pushing them forward. WeChat began their own HTML5 instant platform, and we've seen that working. There hasn't been really a breakthrough hit in the instant games that would be sort of like a benchmark for others to follow. The retention of those games has been very, very low. I mean, they are getting the downloads, or they are getting the players to play those games, but then the retention has been surprisingly low, given the fact that they are on an extremely social platform. Do I believe that there might be something there? Yeah, I do. They're attached to such a growth channel that it's harder to fail than to succeed. Let's put it this way. Especially with a push of a platform like Facebook. And yeah. So I think somebody will crack the code, and everybody else will follow. So we'll see what happens.
Speaking of kind of failure or success in the instant games arena, do you think WeChat's in with a chance to challenge Facebook? I mean, traditionally they found it tough to penetrate the West. On the other hand, their kind of gaming background and expertise is I think probably a little deeper than Facebook's. Do you think that we're going to see a clash of titans here, or has Facebook kind of really grabbed the lead?
I don't know. Like when I'm looking developing a Facebook, it is kind of copying Tencent in many sense. So I think they are clashing already, but I think Facebook is trying to enter the Chinese market, and WeChat is trying to take a piece of the West market with a purchase of a slice of Snapchat as well. So I think they are copying from each other. They're both so big that
it's inevitable.
Yeah, it's inevitable. I mean, they're just they are already competing. So
yeah, on multiple fronts.
Yeah, exactly. And Tencent is the kind of company that they would just buy something.
Yeah. So I think they both might be, to be honest. So yeah. I want to jump to talking about hyper casual games, because this has kind of been one of those buzzwords, one of those big trends that kind of also really exploded over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So why do you think they've driven so much growth in the mobile game space? I mean, you've likened it to kind of the rise of app stores in terms of the impact it's had. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's the overall shift of the market. We talked about puzzle games, and one of the things that puzzle games are growing is by adding more of these mid-core features, more of these deeper features into those games, and making them more engaging. And at the same time, they are kind of becoming more complicated. So hyper casual games are just jumping into that segment that the previous super casual games, the puzzle games, are opening up. So they are doing those games that, no tutorial, just open up the game, tap on the screen once, and then you're getting stuff in. And Voodoo is a great example with 110 million installs in 2017. Game's also not bad with 19 million installs. And the in-app revenues of those games are pretty low, but at the same time,
the scale is great.
Yeah, the scale is great, and they're doing a lot with video ads, and they are doing a ton with the cross promotion. So they're able to operate that volume business, and they're just games that are super easy to download, super easy to start playing, and they're fun. So that's
not unimportant.
Yeah, it's almost like our prototypes, but they don't have to think a lot about core loops or social features or stuff like that. It's just like, hey, here's the game, watch some ads, pay if you don't want to see the ads, and if you are still playing, we're going to force you to see some ads until you pay or leave. So it's a pretty simple monetization model. That's kind of crudely explaining it, but that's how they work, and it's volume. And if you're a publisher like Voodoo, you're basically getting a volume of these different games proposed to you, and just pick the best one based on metrics and keep running that. So
so it's a very iterative it's a prototyping process in a way.
Yeah, it's like a high volume, big scale prototyping process. So it's fascinating. It's definitely.
Do you think the growth is sustainable? Do you think that kind of hyper casual games are going to max out audience wise, or is the sustainability of the space kind of down to innovation around game mechanics and slightly more sophistication maybe?
Yeah, I think we are about to see the peak of those because there's only so many iterations you can make of these super simple games, and then once you start seeing that peak, you start seeing some more engagement elements, some core loops, some leadership mechanics, some social mechanics added to those games. Suddenly they're not as hyper casual as they were. So I think that's inevitable, and it's a trend that will stick around. They might take the position of those super casual puzzle games, but Gram is a good example. They've added some more depth to their games already, and they're experiencing some success with it. So yeah, I think that's the kind of way to go.
Do you think that the rise of hyper casual is also driving the rise of ad monetization, or is it the other way around? As ad monetization gets more sophisticated and effective, specifically around things like video advertising, hyper casual games then become a more viable option?
Yeah, I think they both go hand in hand. So, there's a developer here in Helsinki, Future Play Games, has been pretty great with that monetization model. And because they're starting from the point, unlike any other games, they're starting actually with a point, like many hyper casual games, with how are we going to maximize our revenue from video ads. So it is already starting at the point where video ads are an important part of the game, not something you stick on top of it. And kind of like, oh, you can pay us some money, or you can watch this video for 50,000 times. While it's a part of it, it makes more sense. So your video ad conversion is, I don't know, it has to be around like 65-75% at least for those games. Um, so yeah, and through that and through volume of downloads, you're able to actually monetize.
How have successful hyper casual games innovated on the idle model, or have many of them done so?
How have they innovated on the idle model?
It's sort of incorporated elements or taken the idle model and made it kind of a little bit more added depth and sophistication.
Yeah, I want to say like Idle Heroes is probably the greatest example, but then again, I don't think that's an idle game. It kind of is, but it kind of isn't. It's a full-fledged RPG with an idle element. That would be most. Yeah.
Don't let the name fool you.
Yeah, exactly. I actually don't know. Like I have holes in my game, and idle games are one of them. I don't play idle games, to be honest. It's just like it's yeah, I just don't like them.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You can't play all game. I mean, maybe you can, but I reckon
no, I can't. I don't think anybody can. So I do play games all day. Not all day. I mean, I do play games every day. Let's put it this way. But not idle games and not a lot of March battlers.
Is it this is slightly off piece, but is it difficult to enjoy gaming the way you used to because now you work in gaming, or is that actually kind of the whole experience is enhanced because now you're just that much deeper into what goes into making the experience that you're enjoying?
That's a fascinating question. It depends on the game. So if the game is in your genre, then you're not really enjoying it because you're thinking so much when you're playing it. Like, okay, they're doing this. I wonder why they're doing that. Okay, here comes this screenshot. And then you continue, oh, okay, what is this screenshot? And that's how you play a game that is in your genre. But then there are games that I would play if I wanted to relax and had some time to do that. And that would be unlikely on a different platform. I used to play a lot of Heroes of the Storm, my favorite and I'm a big fan of World of Warships, always have been. I don't know, there's something about those battleships. So even that game is on mobile, but I don't like the mobile version. So if I want to relax, I would play on a different platform. That's what I'm
interesting. Is mobile kind of? I think you may have said this elsewhere. That mobile's it's not a platform built for gamers or for games.
Mobile? Yeah.
Yes. Do you think? Why do you think that is? Do you think it's too interruptive? There's just something about mobile that doesn't allow you to kind of dedicate yourself to the game experience?
Yeah, I just think that no, it's just like it's a small screen and like if you think about gamer, would you think about a person with a big Razer phone, or would you think about a person with a headset and actually a laptop? Or a desktop with different colors, gleaming through it, and they're probably playing League of Legends or Counter-Strike or whatnot, more skill-based games. That's what I mean. It's just I understand the accessibility of mobile because everybody has a mobile phone, but if you're a gamer, you probably own a laptop or a desktop or at least a console. So,
well, that's actually one of those really interesting questions that's or assumptions that's getting interrogated today, because that is the picture you've just described is the typical picture of that most people have in their minds when they think of gamers. But what's emerging as a sort of another element of this reality is that my grandmother is a gamer and my mother is a gamer, and I might be a gamer, and I guess that's also kind of what mobile's done, and kind of casual games. It's added a new kind of audience to this
okay,
space.
So I understand. So the way I describe gamer is a person who's very into into games, and they're usually into a specific game.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to, your grandmother or your mother, I don't know if they're hitting the forums on Candy Crush Saga or
Unlikely.
whatnot and talking about DayZ. They're just playing it because they're enjoying it.
Yeah.
It's a nice entertainment, and it has the entertainment value. And gamers are they're when I see gamers play, I don't think they play for entertainment. They play for
Mm.
competition. They the competition seems to be the key driver for them playing, and the skill of the game is really important, and all of those elements that are actually, they are part of mobile, but we're not as competitive. We're not that skill based. So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, the problem that I see with gamers and mobile phones is like a lot of the game makers are actually gamers. Hence, we are working in this profession.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is when we're asked like, hey, what kind of game would you like to make? And naturally the first answer from a gamer is the type of game that they would play.
Of course.
And you'd be like, well, I love League of Legends. I've been playing that game for 5 years. Guess what? I want to make League of Legends for mobile phones. Like,
Mm-hmm.
really?
Unlikely.
Yeah. I mean, it works in China, so that's a surprise, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work outside China, so that's, I might be wrong. This is my own opinion, so I'm just saying
No.
it's just funny. It's like every time I see this every time when you're able to make a game now, it's like let's make Overwatch. Okay, how about not? Uh, like,
Yes, I can definitely see that. I want to jump back very briefly to
mhm,
hyper casual,
yeah.
just because I want to touch on the UA side. On the one hand, the barrier for entry for UA on hyper casual games is low because users start monetizing immediately through
hmm
ads, and then
hmm
you don't have to wait for kind of IAP model to prove itself. On the other hand, the space is getting kind of increasingly competitive. Do you think aggressive UA for these titles is going to continue, or are we going to see a shift of focus to building in longer term retention?
I see that I mean all of them are pushing the sort of like a day 3 ROI up. And it's
Mm-hmm.
key for them. And once that has been maximized, you have to do something else, right? Because if the
Mm-hmm.
CPIs keep on growing and you need new users to keep alive, you're probably investing into something else, and you're looking at day 7 ROIs, and
Right.
and that suddenly adds a little bit features to it. So that's a question. But then again, if you're going to that model, sort of away from that hyper casual approach, then you're suddenly using much more analytics, and you're using more work on feature work. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what the live teams for those hyper casual games are. If I almost feel like sometimes it's just like release and forget, and or release, monetize, and then forget.
And then forget.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, I don't know.
Interesting. Do you think we're going to see a lot of consolidation in the hyper casual
Mhm.
space?
Mm,
Not yet.
not yet, not yet. Because catch-up's owned by Ubisoft, and it depends on what happens with Voodoo, but there's not that many of them.
Mm-hmm.
And if the competition keeps on going like this, I just believe that they can produce enough hyper casual games on their own, so they don't need to go out and buy
Mm-hmm.
them. And depending on the retentions of the players, it's not like you're buying somebody for their player base, because if the retention, long-term retention is low, I mean, you could essentially buy them and cross promote them to your own games, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just don't see that
Not
being.
for the moment.
No.
Um, okay, final, more general question, because
hmm
it's very difficult to let a 2018 trends piece go by without touching on AR. So what do you kind of very generally across casual, mid, hardcore, obviously AR was a super hot
hmm
topic leading up to 2018. Do you
hmm
think we're going to see sophisticated examples of AR games in the coming year, or is it going to be kind of Pokemon Go derivative, maybe a
Yeah.
little bit gimmicky? How
I
quickly is AR going to start maturing?
I think we're gonna see both. It's probably really clear that the platforms are investing into it. Both Apple and Google want
Mm-hmm.
AR games, so not only games but AI applications. So we'll see a lot of work happening there, and I've seen the IKEA app, AR
Mm,
app, and so forth. So they are getting sophisticated, and they're getting very interesting. And there's a lot of innovation going on there. I don't think we're gonna see another Pokemon Go. I mean, that was once in a lifetime. So I wouldn't hold my breath for Harry
Another
Potter
big.
Go. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but in overall, like I know that there's the Walking Dead AR game has been announced and so forth. So there's stuff coming out. I'm kind of skeptical. Like I don't understand how Pokemon Go was. I mean, I do understand how it was so successful, but it was an anomaly. So
Mhm.
so we'll see. We'll
It'll be
see.
hard to replicate.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest believer in AR games. I'm not, I sound super conservative, but I'm just not. I do believe in AR apps. I mean, they make a lot of sense, but
Mhm.
in terms of games, like if you're adding any technology, does it make it better? You know, that's the question.
Mm.
So can AR make it better?
The
Maybe,
jury's still out.
but yeah, just like slinging the balls at something that is kind of in front of you, but it's isn't. It's just like really. Um, I don't know.
Well, thank you very, very much for sharing your experience, your perspective, Mishka.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and thanks to all of you for listening to this episode of Level Up. We will see you next episode. Indie or AAA?
AAA,
IAPs or ads?
IAPs,
Casual or strategy?
strategy,
PC or mobile?
mobile,
Free to play or pay to play?
free to play,
iOS or Android?
both.
Landscape or portrait?
Depends.
Unity or native?
Native,
Okay, 3D or 2D?
2D,
Super Mario or Sonic?
Sonic,
AR or VR?
AR,
Shower or bath?
shower.
Great. Thank you very, very much. That
Thank
was
you.
wonderful. Bye.